It's Saturday. And I have some time, so I'm going to do a little bit of teaching here. I want to talk about meaning and what is meaning? Where does it come from? Well, not so much about what is it. We kind of know what it is. But where does it come from? Well, I'm going to ask that question, and then I'm going to go do a little bit of teaching here, and then we're going to eventually come to some kind of answer about where meaning comes from. Where does it come from? Well, meaning in life does not come from pleasure, and it doesn't come from leisure. These are both two good things. So don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that we don't need pleasure, we don't need leisure. But pleasure and leisure both have their purpose. But if they become the thing that is the goal of what we do, then we find that even though pleasure and leisure allow us to bring some kind of balance to our life, some kind of homeostasis where things get balanced, in your body. When you eat too much salt, the reason why you get thirsty is because your body is starving for homeostasis. It wants to get back into balance, and there's too much salt, so you have to even that out by drinking more water. Well, pleasure and leisure allow us to get things back into balance, but they're not the goal of life. They don't bring meaning to life. They're good, but here's the thing, even pleasure and leisure can actually bring us to entropy, bring us out of balance, take us out of balance. They can cause us problems when we focus too much on leisure or on pleasure. So where does meaning come from? Well, I'm going to start here with a passage from Scripture in Genesis chapter 1, verse 28. It says, God blessed them, and them is Adam and Eve, or Adam and Eve, their names mean something. They mean humanity and life, and they're the first priests, but they're archetypes, so we don't know what their actual first names really were. They're ancient, even more ancient than the scriptures themselves. These are the first priests of Yahweh. And so when they were finally written about, they were given these names that mean humanity and life. And God says to them, to humanity and life, to Adam and Eve, it says God blessed them, and then he said to them, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves along the ground. And notice that all of these are imperatives. They're do words, like do this, do these things, be fruitful, increase, fill, subdue, rule over. This word subdue is really interesting because it has a bunch of different meanings. Now, know that in Hebrew is called a poor language, and that's because it has few words in its vocabulary, but every word has a lot of meanings. So somebody's going to say, yeah, but that word means this. Well, it also means that. It has a lot of meanings. And here, what it means when the word here says subdue it, it means subordinate it. Why? Why are we subordinating? Why are we the ones that get to roll over? Well, that's because the idea is that since we've been appointed as the image of God, as the representatives of God in the world, because of that, the idea is that we would be beneficial rulers, benevolent rulers. That's the idea, that we would be good rulers. So why subdue? Why subordinate and roll over? Well, because we're going to get to this in a second, but again, it's because the hope is that we would be beneficial. And many ancient religious texts, well, work was a punishment. It was something that people were forced to do, humanity or human beings were forced to do, so that the gods could be served. But in the biblical world, in the biblical text, for the biblical God, Yahweh, the idea of work was that it's a gift. Notice that chapter 1, verse 28, when we're told to do all of these things, for example, this is before the fall. So none of these things that we're told to do, these imperatives, are any form of punishment. That's not what the intention of the text is. The intention of the text is to show that we're given a responsibility, something that's meaningful and purposeful. So where does meaning come from? It comes from responsibility. Life without purpose is really a slow decline into meaninglessness, into entropy, into the disintegration of balance in life. Some will say to me, well, I hate work. I think it is a form of punishment as far as I'm concerned. And to that, I would respond and say simply, you haven't found the right work. You're in the wrong job, because work is a gift. Each one of us is given a particular set of personality traits. There's an acronym, OCEAN, and OCEAN is the big 5 personality traits. So OCEAN, OCEAN, it stands for openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And you can look up, each of those if you want. Look up the big 5 personality traits, and you can learn about those on your own. So we're each given these personality traits. We're also given talents, things that come natural to us, and then we can develop those into skills through training. But we all have natural talents. They're gifts to us, just like these personality traits. We also have experiences. And then there are also intelligences. And these different intelligences don't just include intellectual intelligence, but there's artistic intelligence. There is musical intelligence. There's also mechanical intelligence. If you ever have seen somebody who can just fix things, they just go out into the car and look inside, and they've never had any formal mechanical training, but they just have a propensity to know how to fix things. They have a mechanical intelligence. So with all of these things, between the personality traits and the talents and the experiences and even these forms of intelligence that we're given, we find ourselves attracted to particular kinds of things that we like and that are meaningful to us. And that includes work, kind of work that we do. I want you to notice that I didn't say that particular kinds of work that make us happy. They don't make us necessarily happy. They are meaningful, but they don't make us happy. There's actually been tests done that prove that married couples who have children are less happy than married couples who have children, which is interesting. So the responsibility of parenting. Responsibilities don't always make us happy. So again, if the goal is happiness, we're going to be in trouble. Happy is something much different than meaningful. I know a lot of people who work, right? What I would consider to be difficult or even tedious jobs, and I would be miserable doing them. And they're not necessarily happy doing them, but they're meaningful to them. So even though they're tedious or they're difficult or they make them sweat and they work really hard, they make them maybe greasy like a mechanic, whatever, but they are so fulfilled by that job because they found the right work that brings them meaning. Like parenting, it's not necessarily fun, but it's meaningful. It's fulfilling. When I was in the military, the second time I went in active Army, regular Army, and then I got out after 4.5 years. I went in the National Guard. I got on active duty in the National Guard, took on a position of legal specialist. And after a couple of weeks, probably 2 weeks, I realized I'm in the wrong job. And my supervisor realized it too and confronted me about it and said, John, I think you're in the wrong job. And I was miserable sitting at a desk, staring at a computer, filling in people's documents and filing their documents and helping them with their health insurance and their life insurance and their DD-214s and all these things. And I was miserable sitting there doing that. Was it a bad job? No way. It was a great job. It just wasn't fulfilling to me. Am I saying it didn't make me happy? No, I don't think I've never had a job that actually made me happy, but there are jobs that are fulfilling to me. Like the one I have right now, the thing that I do right now as a Salvation Army officer is very fulfilling. Does it make me happy? No, it's difficult. It's challenging. Sometimes it's heartbreaking, but it's fulfilling. This is why it's important to recognize how we're wired. It's important to recognize what are those big 5 personality traits that are in each of us. What level are each of those a part of our lives? What are our talents? What are the things that we were kind of naturally good at? And if we trained them through education and experience, that they could actually become a skill and we could become professional at them. What are those things? What are the experiences that we've come through in life that have shaped us toward a particular kind of work in our life? What is the intelligence that I have, that you have, that helps us, along with those other things, to be pointed toward a particular direction and work? When I was growing up, I did everything from washing dishes to waiting on tables to writing songs in Nashville to what else did I was a painter. I was a trim carpenter. I was in the military. All of those things, experiences, I look back on and I think, what in the world was that all about? And then all of a sudden, everything I did led up to the moment when I went to the Evangeline Booth College in Atlanta and became a Salvation Army officer. The military experience taught me taught me to be comfortable in a uniform. The writing songs almost goes directly into the idea of writing sermons, because you have to write a message that people can understand. Doing carpentry work, doing painting, all of these things have come into my life as a Salvation Army officer. Somehow God was shaping me along the way. I like to say that, before I say that, the goal is to do our part for the benefit of the whole. I like to say that balance, I talked about homeostasis earlier, but balance is everything doing its own thing for the benefit of the whole thing. Balance is everything doing its own thing. Every person, every part of a machine, every department in a store is doing its own thing, but not for itself. It's doing its own thing for the benefit of the whole thing. When we're doing what's meaningful, we're bringing about this balance or homeostasis of community. When I'm doing the thing that I'm created to do, I'm benefiting you. Not just me, but I'm benefiting the whole thing. Pleasure and leisure doesn't do that. It's about me. I need rest. I need a break. I need to have a little bit of fun. But the things that are meaningful in life aren't necessarily easy and not always fun, and they definitely don't always make us happy, but they bring about balance within the community. When we're doing what's meaningful, we're bringing about this balance of community. We're multiplying the joy and minimizing the suffering in the world. That's the goal. Multiplying the joy, minimizing suffering. When we're doing what is not meaningful, whenever we're doing what's not meaningful, which includes only doing what's fun, if we only eat donuts all the time, we're bringing the destruction of balance. We're destroying our bodies. When we only have fun, when we only do what's fun, we're not taking care of our responsibilities. We're destroying things like our family. We're contributing to the destruction of life around us. That's why God tells us in that passage, subdue it, make it subordinate to you. Because the expectation is that you will be a benevolent ruler, that you will do things good for everything around you. You will be beneficial for everything. That's the goal. If we spend our paychecks on entertainment and pleasure, we'll quickly discover that we're no longer having very much fun, and neither are the people around us, because we're wasting our money and we're destroying our family finances. If happiness was meant to be the end of all our means, we're in a lot of trouble. If that's the goal. Why? Because as we all rapidly discover in life, Happiness is a wonderful experience, but it's kind of like a butterfly. It flitters all around, and you really don't know where it's going to land. And if you don't think that's true, you can probably think of experiences in life where you thought, this is going to make me happy, and that doggone butterfly didn't land. If I just had this car, and then you got the car, and you started paying the bill and putting the gas in the tank, and it didn't make you very happy. So it's like a butterfly. It flutters around. You can't depend on happy. And then there are other times when you think, this isn't going to make me happy at all. And to your surprise, happiness lands right on your face. For example, walking around in the rain. My daughter and I, we lived in Newbern, North Carolina, and we had a house there. We used to go outside in a pouring rain and play, leapfrog. And we laughed and had the greatest time. And I never would have thought going outside and hanging around in the rain would make me happy, but it landed right on our faces. So happiness can't be the goal. Meaning, fulfillment is the goal of life. Make responsibility your goal. And you'll discover that a meaningful life is one in which the responsibility you've chosen is heavy enough to be uncomfortable. It's kind of like parenting or taking on a responsible job that's difficult where you're in charge of other people. Right? It's heavy enough to be a little uncomfortable, maybe a lot uncomfortable, but it's realistic enough to be fulfilling, be fruitful, increase in number, fill the earth, and subdue it. Where does meaning come from? It comes from responsibility. Grace and peace.